All right, are we good to go?
We're good to go.
All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 11:33, and we'll do a roll call, please.
Monterey,
Here.
Sand City,
Here.
Castroville.
Here. All right, awesome. Additions to agenda? Any takers? All right, seeing none, we'll move to approval of agenda.
So move.
A second.
All right, take it out to the public. Seeing none and seeing that two, at least if not all of the people are staff, it's all okay. Bring it back to the committee. All in favor? Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Public comment. Go out to the public to see if anybody has any public comment for items not on today's agenda. Seeing none, bring it back to the committee. And we'll go to item number 6, consider approval of budget personnel committee minutes of January 12th. Entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
All right, take it out to the public. Anybody in the public wish to speak to item number 6? Seeing none, we'll bring it back for a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Move to item number 7, consider proposed redesign of interim financial reports included in the board agenda packet. And this one, I will pass it to Fred.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you, Chair. So good afternoon. So what we typically do for the board is actually present them 3 different reports on a regular basis. And we've been doing this for a while. One on basically monthly budget adjustments that we do and kind of some other miscellaneous financial information. One on the customer assistance program. And then one just on our interim financial reports as well too. So just to kind of consolidate things a little bit and kind of streamline the preparation, the reports for the board in essence. I basically look to kind of combine those 3 into one report, and you can see it is at the attachment to the report. Basically, all the information that you've been getting before, you'll continue to get. It's just a little bit more streamlined in preparation. Hopefully it'll be nicer for the board because you can literally just look at one page and get the key information that you need on the customer assistance program, the financials, and kind of where we're at, like as far as revenues and operating expenses too. So we just wanted to bring it to the board if you had any input for us as well too, but this is what we're planning on basically bringing forward as part of the board meeting for February and then going forward. So happy to open up to any comments. So
Any questions?
I think that's a good idea. It's kind of like a dashboard where you could go to the to-go page and get a quick glimpse.
that's
Thank
exactly
you.
it. Yeah. Paul, do you want to say something?
Yeah,
too?
it seemed to us like it's a little more streamlined and more readable for the board and the public, but still contains substantially the same information on the finances of the agency. So just trying to make things a little easier.
All right, let's
Great.
take it out to the public. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the committee. Just to echo, I agree. I think it looks great. It's nice to have that snapshot. So I think it's more user friendly, but also I imagine it's going to be easier on staff to kind of not have to create so much duplication in reports. So, all right, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to go ahead and entertain a motion that the Budget Committee Personnel Committee receive the report and provide the direction to staff on the format.
I second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. We'll move to item number 8, consider recommending adoption of a resolution revising in part resolution number 2006-24, revising the policy for adopting a general policy relating to the establishment of informal board committees. And for this one, I'll be passing it to Chai. All right, perfect.
So good morning, Chair Williamson and committee members. Chaita Ibarra, Secretary to the Board. Today, staff is requesting that you recommend to the full board revising Resolution 2006-24, which is a resolution that outlines the policy for establishment of informal board committees for our 3 standing committees: Budget Personnel, Recycled Water, and Projects and Planning. The revision that staff is requesting is that you remove the requirement that a weighted vote constitute a quorum on committees. As you know, every year, the board chair, after the board chair has been selected, the chair makes committee assignments and follows a policy outlined in that resolution. Some of those policy requirements include that the chair shall make reasonable efforts to ensure that participation is shared as equally as possible, that the chair review prior committee assignments along with current member preferences and balance appointments based on member interest, availability, committee experience, and the needs of the agency. It also states that in making appointments, the chair shall ensure that a committee does not constitute a quorum of the board of directors through either the weighted vote or the numerical voting of the board. Aside from Resolution 2006-24, there is no legal requirement to consider the weighted vote to determine the quorum for committees. Under California law, it states that a committee is composed of less than a quorum of the board of directors. In the case of the M1W board, less than a quorum of the board would be 5 members or less on a committee. The M1W Joint Exercise of Powers Agreement in Section 3.03 also defines a quorum by members and not weighted votes. Lastly, the Brown Act defines a meeting as any congregation of a majority of the members of a legislative body irrespective of weighted votes. When the weighted vote is taken into consideration when forming these committees, it limits the maximum number of members that can be on each committee. The total weighted vote of the board is 22, and the use of it to determine a quorum restricts the maximum weighted votes on each committee to 11. The weighted votes of the 10-member entities vary between 1 to 6 weighted votes. As an example, if Salinas, Seaside, and Monterey all expressed interest in serving on one committee, the total weighted vote of these 3 committees, of these 3-member entities is 12, which under Resolution 2006-24 constitutes a quorum of the board. A committee can't take action on behalf of the entire board, but they do serve an important function. U.S. committee members are tasked with hearing and studying important information on policies and then making a recommendation to the entire 10-member body to vote upon at board meetings. By removing the requirement for the chair to consider the weighted vote in establishing committees, you could have up to 5 members on each committee. Happy to answer any questions.
And if I just can add, I know Ron and Marianne as past chairs understand the difficulties we had in putting committees together with the way the resolution is currently written, including weighted vote. So this change that Chai is proposing still meets all the applicable laws and everything, but will make it easier and more inclusive to have members on different committees. As she mentioned, if you had Salinas, Monterey, and Seaside, you can't do that. So this will allow a little more flexibility versus what we've seen in the past. And it's truly based on a resolution that was adopted that we were adhering to. So you as the board have that ability to change it.
Well, and I imagine that logically, part of the reason why this is okay is because the committees aren't taking any action on behalf of the agency. We're just making recommendations to the board.
Correct. Still very important, but you're not taking action, as you stated.
Very good.
Very good. Thank you, Chair. I applaud whoever came up with that idea. It's a great idea.
I wonder if they're in this room.
Yeah,
I bet they.
yeah, and
Actually, I think he might be virtual.
Yeah, it was actually like, to give some credit where it's due, Mr. Gilpin was like, why are you doing this? So
In this virtual room, I guess, right?
so. through the
Really,
chair-
Paul, it was Chai who said, do we have to do this? So.
We can do this all day.
So yes, this is great because I know that when you come to sitting in the position as a chair and vice chair going to be chair, you know, that you have to look for your committee and you have to weigh all these different things out. And I think this here kind of opens it up to more people. And even though these committees, you know, these committees sit as to bring recommendations back to the board, as Tyler said. So I think that this is a good thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a good point. I think creating that space for more of the board to have these discussions in the committees, I think will allow the conversations to be more productive when we get to the full board too. So I think that there's a lot of added
Mhm.
value in moving in this
Yes.
direction. All right, and with that, we'll take it out to the public. Anybody in the public wish to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the committee and entertain a motion.
So move approval, staff report.
And I will second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. With that, we will move on to item number 9, update on plan for moving billing to the tax rolls. And this one is going to Fred.
This is kind of a joint effort, honestly. So I'm going to do just a very brief intro and I'm going to turn it over to Jim,
Perfect.
who will have a lot of great details on it. So as the board knows, we previously brought our plan for bringing, putting the wastewater fees on the tax roll starting next fiscal year. So Jim's going to talk about some additional legal requirements in order for us to basically complete the process in accordance with the health and safety code. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jim. Jim.
Thanks, Fred. I guess there's two components to this. One is M1W's rate being placed on the tax rolls, and then M1W continuing to collect its member agencies' rates. And the proposal is for those rates to go on the tax roll as well. So as part of this procedure, Fred, Mike, Rachel, their team are reaching out to the member agencies to go over the procedures that are required by law to put wastewater fees onto the tax rolls. Essentially, the underlying rate that's going to be placed on the tax rolls has to have been approved by a 2/3 vote of the members of the legislative body. In our case, the prior rates were approved unanimously, but in order for those rates to continue to be placed on the tax rolls, if there's any changes in the rates, it would be subject to a 2/3 approval requirement. That same approval requirement would apply to each of the member agencies for the rates. Then for the first year that these are placed on the tax rolls, a written report is required to be prepared, which is simply a listing of all the assessor parcel numbers, the parcel upon which the tax or the fee is to be collected, with the corresponding rate applicable to that parcel. And so M1W will be preparing a report of its listing all of its parcels and rates. And then each member agency would be required to do the same. I'll let Fred talk about how they're going to implement this with the member agencies. I'm just going over the procedures.
Yeah.
Once those reports are prepared, then the board secretary or city clerk has to schedule a public hearing. It's a noticed published hearing. The first year, in addition to the publishing of the notice in the newspaper, M1 and the member agencies will also have to mail a notice to the property owners. That mailing only applies in the first year of implementation. After the notice has been provided, we'll be required to hold a public hearing similar to what you're used to in a 218 rate hearing. And property owners are allowed to come in and object, and the board is required to, hear and consider those objections or protests to placing the rates on the rolls. If we were to get a majority owner protest, i.e. majority of the owners of the parcels come in, then the fee could not be placed on the tax rolls. Pretty unlikely and improbable that you'll get a majority protest based on our experience in other agencies. Once you hear the objections, then the board can adopt a resolution or ordinance by 2/3 vote approving the annual report. And once the annual report is approved, it's filed with the county, who then will collect those rates. This process will have to be followed every year, i.e. So next year we would have a new report. showing the rates for each of the parcels for that year. You'd hold a public hearing and you would approve the report and file it with the county. And that process would continue year after year. So that's summary overview of that process. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
And then I'm going to add a couple things too. And then Mike and or Rachel may want to add a couple things too, because as Jim mentioned, we've been reaching out to all of our member entities. In fact, we just had our fourth meeting today as well too. So a couple things, like Jim was saying, we will actually be preparing a lot of us. I would say the bulk of the assistance for the member agencies and kind of taking this, I would say, to the finish line, as I'd like to say. So we're going to be preparing the annual rate report for them. We're going to be assisting them as they, if they would like us to, with their noticing, with the basically the mailing of the notices, as Jim was talking about. We're going to be basically working with them to revise the collection agreements that we have with them right now. And then we're in the process of getting from the county, basically, and they are updating their collection agreement that they actually apply to kind of all their firms. So they're going to be presenting us with a draft of the new agreement. So we'll be working with them to enter into that and make sure that we get those addressed. Any of the key terms in there as part of our collection agreements as well too. Mike, Rachel, I don't know if you guys want to add anything.
So the meetings have been pretty productive with the member entities. Obviously, when you go through this timeline and the different steps you have to take, there's a little concern for sure, but I think it's nothing that's insurmountable. Monterey, for example, is considering potentially a rate increase, and so they're working with them on some timelines and things like that. I think everybody kind of understands it, and we're trying to move forward in the best way we can. And one of the things we're asking for is a kind of a nod of the head or a letter of agreement by middle of next month to let us know for sure that everybody's moving ahead. If they choose not to move ahead with us for collecting the fees to go to the tax roll, then they would have to kind of implement a billing service in kind of short amount of time. And we heard that this morning, but I think what we're offering and how we're going to come alongside these member entities, I think it's all going to work out.
And Mike, you're just talking about Monterey, PG, Seaside Sand, and Salinas needing letters from each of those.
Yeah.
And one of the things too, for example, the city of Monterey, they are looking as to whether or not they want to do changes to their fees. So we've talked with them at their meeting saying, here's kind of the timeline in essence that, you'd need to follow if you want it like the full years or if you want like a partial year, because obviously we have to have everything approved from them by a certain date so that we can upload that data to the county. So, so that we've been working with member agencies on that. And Paul, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else as well too. So,
No, thank you.
Okay.
I think Jim, were you trying to jump in there?
Oh, sorry, Jim. Yeah, go ahead.
No, thanks, Tyler. I was just going to clarify what Paul said. This isn't all 10 member agencies. It's, what was it, 4 other entities essentially have got to go through this process. City of Monterey, City of Salinas, Pacific Grove, and then Sand City Sanitation.
Okay, anything else from staff? Perfect. Okay, if I may just ask a question that's kind of burning, it sounds like this process is only required if there's going to be a change in fees or if we're adding a fee. Say we do the opt-out and that's an additional fee that we add. Is some of that eliminated if nobody increases fees or changes any fees?
So what we have to basically do is this. It's kind of like what we did with the board earlier this year. They just have to reaffirm the fee, the current fee in effect, because the county basically wants to see it on a year-by-year basis. So they just need to reaffirm if they've already set that fee.
Does that require the Prop 218 process? Okay.
No, it does require a meeting of your council.
Yep.
For example, but not the public hearing and the other stuff.
Okay.
And
well, Paul, to
mailings.
clarify, I don't know if Paul,
Go
just
ahead,
to
sorry.
clarify that, yeah, I may be misunderstanding what Tyler's saying, but in order to put the rates on the tax roll, Tyler, it doesn't matter if they're new rates or newly or old rates. You have to go through this process of preparing a report, holding the public hearing to approve the report. it wouldn't be a new 218 hearing unless you're adopting new rates. In this situation, if we're going to do the opt-out and you decide to include a fee for the opt-out, then M1W would have to go through a new 218.8 rate process because of that fee.
So. And to put this in a form of a question. Would it be better if our agency didn't add any additional fees and our member agencies didn't look at increasing any of their fees while we're trying to transition to this so that we could focus our efforts on the transition? And then maybe, you know, if there's a need for increase in fees, we can look at that after the transition, maybe in alignment with our rate increases, because we're going to be talking about that. Isn't that next year?
Potentially. I mean, we
Yeah.
have it for 2 more years, but what we're going to be doing is actually, when we bring to the board the budget, for next, we're going to actually do a 2-year budget this year, because we want to see if that last rate increase, you know, it's relatively small, it's less than 6%, is going to be sufficient. So to whether or not we can wait another year to do the rate study, or if we need to start it early.
But at this point, we have an existing Prop 218 that is for this year and next. So we would be starting a rate study the following year. To your point, it would certainly be more simple if the member entities didn't do a Prop 218, nor did we, because then we could just focus on the tax roll change, still going to all the member entities and doing what we need to, but it would simplify it a little bit.
And
I was just saying, and we did, for example, with the city of Monterey, work up some sample timelines for them, and to have a rate that is effective July 1, basically back out 30 days. That's the date of your second public hearing, another 30 days back. So you're looking at your first public hearing, you know, around the beginning of May, which now back out 45 days to make sure you notice that. So anybody looking at a rate increase for next year that they want to be effective July 1 would basically need to be starting to design and print their mailings now. So that timeline, I wouldn't call it impossible, but you would need a lot of dedication in the coming 2 weeks and staff time to be able to meet the Proposition 218 requirements to raise rates to be effective July 1. One of the things, Tyler, we're doing with the city of Monterey was we kind of worked up a second timeline that would look at a rate that has the current rate through August and a new rate effective September 1. So we're trying to get kind of creative, because to, I guess, be more direct in answering your question, would it be easier? Absolutely. But we're pretty creative people over here and pretty
Well,
dedicated.
I
So if we
appreciate-
can work with all of you, and if your entities really need that this year, we're trying to find options within this tighter timeline that occurs only in year 1. Once we're all on this cycle together and we all know that rate increases, if you want them effective July 1, need to be on this schedule, which we would put in the collection agreements. So everybody has it out there outlined for them. You know, yeah, that's going to be easier. We'll all plan accordingly.
Have you heard from any of the members that they plan a Prop 218 this year?
Just so far,
Just Monterey?
Monterey is interested.
Lena's
They indicated
thinking about.
they are interested, but they don't think it's likely this year.
Yeah.
They know they want to do one at some point. Pacific Grove still has another, they're like us.
Right.
They're already in a multi-year rate schedule. And I wasn't on your call this morning.
They weren't talking, at least that I.
Okay,
I-
so
Seaside County Sand, no plans per the meeting we heard this morning.
So I
Paul,
appreciate-
just one comment.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I guess I take this step, but I mean, for example, with Monterey, if they were going to do another rate hearing in August, they would have to do another publishing of an amended rate report and hold that public hearing in order for those to get changed. And well, in fact, I don't think that's possible. They couldn't change the rate in the report until the following August with the
Yeah.
county.
Right. The schedule we built out for them actually has them setting rates for August ahead of, or for September ahead of time. It really just buys an additional month in the schedule. by doing this. So it'd still have to be set ahead of time. Like if you were looking to go effective September 1, and you weren't dealing with the tax roll, you'd have more time to prepare. But because of then the tax roll deadlines, it expedites it, but is longer than if you were trying to go effective July 1.
Sure. I
I
appreciate.
guess what I'm saying is if you adopted the rates effective September 1, they couldn't be collected until the following August on the tax rolls.
We will meet with Jim and confirm before we send anything to your staff.
I think some of the details of this can be figured out offline.
Yeah.
I appreciate M1W staff being willing to support outside agencies and whatever that looks like. So I appreciate that, though I think my concern still applies in regards to overcomplicating this when we are trying to do a huge shift. And this last question is a little bit rhetorical, but I just don't know the value in us transitioning to the tax rolls while at the same time providing this opt-out, because aren't we essentially going to be imposing a fee on these individuals that choose to opt out? Like, how would that benefit anybody to pay more fees? Again, a rhetorical question. I just don't see the added value of adding another layer of complication with the opt-out, creating a murky situation with our customers who may not be fully aware of all the details, including the fee. And so let's say they decide to opt out and now they're getting imposed a fee. It's just complicating things more than it needs to, when we should just rip the Band-Aid off, make the transition. So that's just kind of my stance on it. I think the board will have to come up with some kind of agreement, but my concern is that we need 2/3 to get this to happen. And so I'm just hoping that we can find a way of getting to alignment in regards to do this, because we're all here to make sure that we're representing our ratepayers. That's what this is about. So anyways, I'm going to get off my high horse.
Mhm.
Any other questions, comments on this one? All right, seeing none from the committee, let's take it out to the public. Any comments on this item? All right, seeing none from the public, we'll bring it back to the committee. And I don't think that we need a motion on this one. It's just feedback. So I'll just check in one last time. Any last minute feedback on this one from the committee members? Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you, staff, for the work on this one. All right. And with that, we'll go to item number 10, staff reports.
So I just have a couple quick things regarding the storms that just came rolling through. As you may know, our treatment plant was out of power for about 2 days, which obviously is substantial. We also had a number of pump stations out, some as long as 5 days. So just the staff being responsive starting Sunday at 7 in the morning through yesterday, of making sure diesel was getting to all the generators and things continued to be operating. It was obviously a significant effort for all involved. In addition, we had City of Salinas reach out to us to see if we would take some of their Pond 3 water. Evidently, the levels started rising and the freeboard required per their permit was, getting close. So Mike, primarily, I guess Mike, Fred, and Jim have been working on an agreement with Salinas to allow us to take that water and have them pay the appropriate amount so it doesn't land on the backs of our customers. That agreement was sent to them yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, and we're just waiting to hear back. So at some point, we may be accepting water. Unfortunately, it will not be reused. There's not demand for it right now, so it'll be treated and headed out to the ocean, but it is certainly a benefit to the city. And that's all I had. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Paul. With that, we'll move to item number 11, committee member comments or reports. Anything from committee members?
I just got a quick story.
I love stories.
Just want to commend staff and for keeping us well informed on our rate increases. At a family dinner, and my foster's sister's boyfriend, he's an historian with the DLI, He started asking me, how come I get so many sewer bills and how come this one went up so high? And then as I talked to him, I found out he's in Marina Coast District. So he gets a collection bill from Marina Coast. And then he said, what is this Monterey One water? And they're the ones rating the rate. I said, I'm on the board. Oh, you're the one. So after I explained it all, he said, I understand that. And it's all thanks to you guys that keeping your board fully informed on rates and doing a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember Carbone, anything on your side?
No, we did have a presentation, with Paul on the weighted vote at the city, this past week, and, it was, very informative to all. Also, I just wanted to back up, only on the item, with the billing. Would we get information so we know what our jurisdiction needs to do right now? So could we get a report so that I could, give them a heads up?
Yeah, so staff has been meeting with the Seaside County Sanitation District, which does the city's billing, but we can certainly provide information to each individual city.
Yeah, that might be good because, so that information just goes from, whoever's a representative on that board, so that filters back or down the jurisdiction.
Yeah, so why don't we, if it's okay, send it to the city managers, the respective city managers and our board rep at least.
Yeah, just to administrative, for the administrative portion.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. I did have a follow-up question in regards to the transition to the tax rolls. Is it, when we talk about a 2/3 majority vote, and I'm not sure this is a question for Jim, are we looking at a simple one vote per board member, or does the weighted vote play a role in that at all? I just wonder what the opportunities look like there.
Hey, Jim, we'll let you answer that one.
Yeah.
Well, it's a 2/3 vote, Tyler, and would be subject, it could be subject to a weighted vote if someone calls for it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Both, yeah.
So both apply. All right. Thank you. That's it for me. Appreciate you, staff. And with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the committee meeting. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.